Hello fellow collectors and welcome to Long's Toys. Today we are taking a look at the Bumblebee and Malto Cyber Combiner from the Transformers Earthspark line from Hasbro. So I found this today at my local Target. It is $30, which can seem like a lot, but if you kind of think about it as kind of two warrior class figures, that's not really that much, about 15 a piece. That's kind of par for the course for this line. But it does boast 5 ways to play. So Bumblebee has a robot mode and an alt mode. Malto just has a robot mode, but then they can combine kind of Transformers Energon style, where one is the torso and one is the pants, and then they can switch and be vice versa. So this should be cool. I'm kind of excited for this. I'm interested to see how this goes. Hopefully it's not too basic in service to the gimmick. We'll see how the individual robot modes and everything work out. But it is in this plastic-free packaging, so there's no window here. You can reach in and see the figures. Up here, you just have the Earthspark logo and kind of that typical picture that they usually have on the side of the packaging. Not really too much going on down there. Over here, you just have a big picture of Bumblebee. Over here, you just kind of have a, I guess, product shots of the 2 different combined modes. And then over here on the back, again, you get the 5 different ways to play. So kind of cool. I'm excited for this one. I'm going to go ahead and get it out of the packaging here, and we're going to take a closer look. So here are Bumblebee and Malto out of the packaging, and I have to say, I actually really enjoy this set. I think this is really neat. They're not the most dynamic figures. You know, some of the articulation is hindered, but they have more articulation than I expected. I really have to say that. I want to do a quick size comparison real quick. So here is a current deluxe from Legacy United, so you can see that they are a little bigger than that. But then here is a current Voyager from Legacy United, so you can see that they are a little bit smaller than that. So they're kind of in between Deluxe and Voyager size, just to give you an idea of how big these are. Alright, so we'll take a look at them individually. We'll take a look at Malto first. He does not have an alt mode of his own, but I have to say, it's kind of a cool figure. I like the translucent green parts. You have the wings here on the back. You have this sword here, and it's pretty basic, honestly. It's just a translucent green sword with a little black peg here, and this can kind of swivel around a little bit. You do have a peg on the side here as well, so if you wanted him to hold it like this for some reason, or maybe to peg onto the side of Bumblebee in vehicle mode, could absolutely do that. I'm going to put that off to the side. The other thing that I think is kind of cool, and I don't know how well this is going to show up on camera, but you can actually see him inside the exosuit. So there is like a little plastic head inside there. And I feel like it would have been very easy for Hasbro to just frost this to the point that you can't see anything through it. But they actually went ahead and put a head inside there. And I think that's kind of nice. So you got a lot of nice paint here. You have this kind of silver blue metallic paint here on the head and the chest. So that is painted on top of this translucent green, because you have that down here for the chest as well. Again, you have the wings here on the back. Now, they have a piece here where this can swivel down, but the directions don't mention doing that in any of the forms. So I guess if you just want to do that personally, you can for any of the forms, but they don't mention that. You also have a hinge, so you can move it about 90 degrees there. You can also swivel it up and down a little bit. Now, of course, you can see that it's hitting into the backpack pieces there, so you can't really like swivel it all the way around or anything like that. The head does not move at all. The way it transforms kind of prevents it from swiveling, but you have a ball joint here in the shoulder. And I also kind of think it's interesting how the shoulders are asymmetrical. So you can see this one kind of has a little bit more of a shoulder pad, and this one does not. You have a bend here, about 90 degrees there in the elbow. Now for the transformation, you also have a hinge here in the forearm, which, you know, not really something you'd want to utilize in the robot mode here, but that is there. Nothing in the waist, again, because how it transforms, but you have a hinge and a swivel here in the hip. Kick pretty far forward, pretty far back until you kind of hit into this, and then you kick really far out to the side. So really nice range of motion there in the hip. You can bend about 90 degrees back. You can also bend about 90 degrees forward. So again, a lot of nice articulation there. The foot just kind of collapses up. Doesn't really have any ankle tilt or anything like that. But you got a pretty nice heel here in the back as well. So overall, I kind of think it's a fun little figure. I like the translucent bits. I love seeing the human head inside there. I think that's really cool. I like the little sword accessory. And just overall, it's kind of a cool robot mode. I mean, it would be awesome if he had like a jet alt mode or something like that, but it's not that big of a deal. I think he's kind of cool. Now, bringing in Bumblebee, Bumblebee can utilize the weapon as well if you want him to hold the sword instead. If you want him to kind of peg it up here into this little spot. It's a little loose, but it can kind of. It's really more for the transformation, those pegs, or those peg holes, but he can absolutely hold it in his hand. Paint applications for Bumblebee, not too bad. I think the head actually looks nice. Blue paint for the eyes, silver paint for the face. Autobot symbol here on the chest looks great. Got a little bit of a blue here to simulate the windshield, even though this is 100% not what will be the windshield in the vehicle mode. You don't have anything in the head because of transformation in terms of articulation, but you have a ball joint here for the shoulder. Now, for articulation, you can see there's a big pin here, or I should say, for transformation. This clicks out, but if you wanted to use that as kind of a butterfly joint in robot mode, you could. It can't go forward, it can go back. But again, if for some reason you wanted to utilize that for articulation in the robot mode. Now, he also has an elbow, again, mostly for transformation, but it does give him a nice elbow, and that goes 180 degrees. He does not have any articulation in the wrist, nothing in the waist. Hips, very similar to Moe's. Kick pretty far forward, kick pretty far back until you start to hit into the back stuff here, and then you can kick pretty good out to the side. So really nice range of motion there. I believe that's because these are going to be basically your shoulder joints in the combined modes. And then once again, you have the knee. You can get about 50 degrees, 90 degrees in the knee both ways. Now, you can't do the full 90 the front way, but you can still get a little bit of movement there. And then the feet are very similar, where there's not really any ankle tilt or anything like that. So, honestly, like I said, more articulation than I expected, I have to be honest. They're kind of fun. I mean, is this the best Bumblebee on the market right now? No, I would say the Deluxe Earthspark Bumblebee is probably the best if you just want a standalone Bumblebee that looks great in robot mode and has a really nice looking vehicle mode. You know, obviously this isn't the best for that, but this is in service to the gimmick, and I have to say the robot mode is much better than I expected, especially with all the gimmick built in. So, since Moe does not have an alt mode, I'm going to give him his sword back, and we'll have him stand off to the side for a moment, and we'll take a look at Bumblebee's transformation into vehicle mode. So the transformation is pretty simple. You're going to start by bending those elbows up and kind of just tucking the hands up there. You can go ahead and peg the legs together, which kind of can be a little bit more difficult than you might anticipate, only because there's so much stuff here. So you can see the sides of the leg have kibble, the backs of the leg have kibble, and that's really all for the vehicle mode. So you kind of have to snap this together, and then you also have to, I kind of find it easier to kind of move these out of the way. Then you can really grab a hold of this and make sure that all pegs together. You're going to flip up the feet like so. Then you're going to come around here to the back, and you can see that there are two peg holes right there, and they are going to peg into these large square tabs on the back of the thighs. So this is just going to unpeg from here. You can see where that was pegged in, and then this is going to snugly peg in there. As I say snugly, and then it immediately kicks out. I didn't have this trouble earlier. That's interesting. All right, well, we'll see how it goes. These are going to unpeg. This peg was pegged into there, and that's just going to fold up. It doesn't peg in on the sides here. It just folds up. And then you're going to take this, and you can see that there's another tab right here, and there is a tab spot right there. So you're just going to bring this in and peg this on here like so. And then we're going to open up this chest section here and just rotate the head inside and then close that back up. So I don't know why this is doing this to me now, because earlier I had no issue whatsoever, but apparently this is a thing that can happen where that doesn't want to peg down into there. I don't know if I'm doing something weird. Maybe I have a weird angle of the knees or something. I don't know. But in any case, here's the vehicle mode. It's not the best. I mean, it's got this massive hinge here right in the middle of the windshield, which I have to admit looks really goofy. But I will say at least they have the nice black lines here. They have the headlights painted. They painted all of the windows, which I think looks pretty good. You also have this section here that just sits. Now, this is very crucial to the combined mode, and it just kind of sits up here. I gotta be honest though, it doesn't look the worst. Honestly, I thought it would be more terrible. It kind of just, it reminds me almost of like the engine for Sunstreaker or something like that. It honestly, I don't hate it. I thought I would not like all that kibble up there, but it's not the worst. Rolls decently well. Definitely looks like Bumblebee. It has that kind of wider back section like we've seen with the deluxe version. So honestly, my biggest complaint with this is just this massive hinge in the middle of the windshield here. And I understand they couldn't paint the hinge because over time that paint would wear off. And you can't really mold that out of blue. One, it wouldn't match. And two, you know, the rest of this piece is yellow, so that wouldn't make any sense. You'd be painting so much yellow down here just to fix this problem. So I understand why it had to happen, but that does look a little ridiculous. But otherwise, it's not a terrible vehicle mode. I have to be honest. It's really not terrible. Now, I'm trying to look. He doesn't really have anywhere to peg in that sword, so I guess there's not really anywhere in vehicle mode where we can store that. But luckily, you don't really need him to, because Mo can just hang on to it since he doesn't transform. But yeah, not bad. Alright, for the first configuration, we'll do Bumblebee as the torso, and we'll do Mo Malto as the feet. So basically what you're going to do, leave the feet down here in the front, and you actually have these like shoes that are in the back of the leg. So these are going to flip around like so, and then peg in here to the bottom of the foot, just to give him kind of like a wider base, kind of beef up his feet. Now, if you have ever handled any Super Sentai mecha for larger combinations, you know how things love to become shoes, and that's just because it gives, you know, more of a center of gravity, so it prevents them from falling over, and that's essentially what we're doing here. So we're going to open up the chest, just like we did with Bumblebee, and we're going to rotate the head inside, and then close it back up. We are going to take the hands, and we'll kind of move, well, let's move the wings back a little bit first. But we're going to, you can see that there is a tab right here, and there is kind of like a little spot here on the forearm. Let me zoom in here so you can see that. There we go. So that little notch. So we're going to bend this, and then just pop it on the notch there, and then we're going to bend that hand with that weird forearm joint I showed you earlier. So we're going to go ahead and pop that on there, and then pop this back. And then this guy is all ready to go. And we're going to take Bumblebee. We are going to fold his head away as well. We're going to fold those arms back up. We are going to fold the feet up like this. Then we are going to flip him around. And we are actually going to use those butterfly joints to rotate the arm sections back. So you're going to want to kind of, these are spring loaded. But if you just kind of fold this back and then bring this back, and then that'll keep it in place. So unhook this and then kind of rotate this to the back like so. And then we are going to connect them together with the two connection ports right there. Now you might want to, I think we have to actually bring the wings all the way back. Otherwise they'll get in the way. So go ahead, connect that. Now connecting this does not spring activate anything. It doesn't make anything auto-transform, which I actually kind of appreciate. It's just a sturdy connection and keeps them together like that. So we're going to, let me rotate this up. We're going to just go ahead, and you can see that there's a seam right down the center here. So we're just going to go ahead and split this apart. Now when you do that, it will cause that spring-loaded section that I showed you here to start to flip around. And so that flips around, and now we have a new head with kind of a cool chest plate here. And now these act as shoulders, and then you just kind of bring this down, and then you can kind of utilize what were Bumblebee's knees to give him kind of an elbow. And so there we go. There's our first combination. It's not bad. Honestly, we can give him the sword here. He does have these massive forearm pieces, which, you know, could look a little weird. And he does kind of have just those hands just hanging out there underneath, which isn't the best. But I mean, the back here, you know, and I guess you could go ahead and flip these underneath if you wanted to. Again, the directions don't really tell you to do this, but if you just wanted to kind of fold that away a little bit here on the back. I mean, you still have all the same articulation in the legs, because that hasn't changed at all. What were the hips are now... You actually have a hinge here, which previously we couldn't really utilize because when it's pegged together it doesn't work, but he's got a shoulder here. What I was saying before about the hips, you can still go out to the side. That's nice. You have those, what were the knees are now the elbows. Honestly, again, more articulation than I expected. I kind of wish there was like an Autobot symbol here. That's about the only thing that I'm bummed about, but that new Bumblebee head I think looks pretty good. It's very much Bumblebee, but it has that cool kind of green visor. And the green visor kind of ties together the green from Malto and the sword and the chest and everything like that. So I think that works. Again, way more articulation than I expected. I definitely did not expect this guy to have this level of articulation. Usually when they do these combiners, you lose a lot in service to the gimmick. And I really feel like that's not happening here. I mean, the combined mode has a shoulder swivel. You have this hinge out to the side here, down like, so kind of two-piece shoulder articulation. You have elbows. Of course, you don't have anything in the wrist, but you have hips, you have knees. I mean, for a combiner toy like this, it's pretty good for articulation, I have to be honest. I remember like the old Crash combiners, they were obviously more simplistic, but you kind of just like split them apart and they became legs. You know, or like the arms flipped around and maybe you got an elbow. Like there wasn't much. This guy's got a decent amount of articulation. My biggest complaints for this are the fact that you can see Malto's hands just hanging out there. I wish there was a better way to hide those. And maybe like a pop of color with an Autobot symbol there on the chest. That's really about it. I'm pretty impressed with this. I know I keep saying it, but I did not really have any expectations for this going into it. And I'm kind of blown away. I mean, maybe I'm giving it too much praise. I don't know, but I think just because my expectations were so low, I'm very pleasantly surprised. And I think that's the way to go about it. But anyway, let's go ahead. Let's do the second combination. Okay, so I've kind of transformed them back into this state. And this is kind of what the directions show as like their combiner ready state. You're going to want to leave Bumblebee's arms swung back here, kind of just as a little bit of kibble here in the back. And then you have this connected back together. And then you have, you know, these sections here. I think you leave the feet down for this combine mode. Actually, no, that's wrong. Well, we'll figure it out. I can't remember. I think you leave them up. So actually what you're going to do for Bumblebee, which is actually pretty cool, you're going to grab a hold of this section in the back. And this is going to rotate. So you do have to leave the feet up. So there we go. I've solved it. And that's going to give him completely new feet. I think that's so cool. I think that's such a neat little thing. Did not see that. Did not know that joint was in there. But you just flip that down. And now that's your new feet. So he's pretty much done. This guy, you are going to flip these feet up. And then we will go ahead and connect them again. So connect that there. Everything should still kind of look like this on the back. Let me zoom out here a little bit. And then we're going to do kind of a similar thing like with Bumblebee, where we're going to grab a hold of the waist section and split this. And as we do that, the piece will flip around from the back and form our new head and chest plate. And then we're going to just bring this down and then just kind of pop up these elbows. And there you go. We are all set. So again, we are utilizing pretty much the entire, you know, waist down section of Bumblebee, where we have the same hips, we have the same knees, we just have a little bit bigger feet. We are utilizing the hips here as our new shoulders, but again, we have that swivel there, and then you have the out to the side hinge, you have your elbows, and again, nothing in the wrist forearm area. That's all one solid piece. Now, he does have some lanky arms. I have to 100% say that. It is a little weird, but given how tall he is, it's not so disproportionate. It's a little disproportionate, I definitely have to admit. And let's go ahead and we'll give him the sword again. He's kind of got these tiny little hands you know, they're not the best, but they're there. But I really like the helmet. I think the helmet came out great. Really nicely painted. And again, this is just fully painted, so you don't see anything inside, and that's kind of how I expected the individual head to be. So that was a nice surprise. But it looks better here. I mean, I wouldn't want the human head shown here because of the fact that they're combined. I think it should have a new head, and so I think that works well. It's a cool sculpt, cool colors, nice paint. I like this new chest plate here. Kind of adds on to the old one without still kind of utilizing this little bit of design here, but still kind of making it its own. And then you have these parts here on the back. Again, if you wanted to leave the wings out, you can. Now, I will also say that the hands for the individual Malto mode are hidden much better in this configuration. The shoulders basically hide them completely. I mean, depending on what degree you have these splayed out to the side, but for the most part, pretty well hidden. So I really like the new Bumblebee feet. I think that's so simple, yet works perfectly. We have the Autobot symbol here now, which we didn't have in the other mode, so I think that's really nice. And just all in all, I like this. I like the other mode as well. I don't know. Honestly, I can't decide. I've been trying to decide which one's my favorite. Even this kibble here on the back doesn't feel like that big a deal. There's just so much more articulation than I expected. I think this is neat. I really do. I'm very interested to see how the Twitch one, there's another set with Twitch, and I'm blanking on the female human's name, so I apologize. But there's another set for them, and if it's, you know, as cool as this one, I'm kind of excited for it. I think this really works. It's a lot of fun. Both the combined modes, I think, look pretty good. And also, just for fun, if you want to do something like have this guy be really good at cartwheels, you could do something silly like this. I do appreciate that when you first connect them, it doesn't trigger an auto, you know, morphing or auto transformation spring-loaded gimmick. There is a spring-loaded gimmick for each, but it happens when you disconnect these, like, waist areas. And I think that's really the smart way to go, because it's not something that will trigger when you don't mean it to. It's not something that will release constantly. Because these lock in, it's very nice that those pieces will stay where they're supposed to until you're ready to engage them. And I think that's really cool. So I really appreciate that. And I just wanted to do this because I just think it's hilarious. But I really do appreciate the fact that even though there is a spring-loaded component, it can be easily kept in check with the way these really connect solidly. And I appreciate that it's not something you're going to set off by accident when you don't mean to. I gotta be honest, I like this a lot. I like this way more than I thought I was going to. This is a really fun toy. Honestly, you have pretty decent modes all the way around. I like Malto's individual mode, his robot mode. I kind of wish he had like a jet alt mode, but I understand. It's still a fun little figure. Bumblebee looks pretty decent in his individual robot mode. His vehicle mode is honestly not the best with that giant hinge in the middle of the windshield, but it's not terrible. It's better than I expected, and I really like both of the combined modes. I think they did a really nice job keeping a decent amount of articulation in every mode. That was something that usually suffers with these kinds of gimmick toys when you have spring-loaded features or something where it's like a whole line, you know, just completely driven by a gimmick. You lose a lot of things like articulation, and they really didn't here. I like both of the combined heads. I like that that is a subtle little spring-loaded gimmick that can be completely kept in check by just keeping the crotch area connected together. I think that's really cool. And if you saw the last pick I did where I kind of had him like doing a cartwheel, I feel like you could easily do something like a stop motion where he quickly changes from combined form to combined form, because there's not too much that you have to do to switch. I mean, you kind of tuck this back, connect the crotch, flip the feet, and then flip these feet back, and then split that crotch. So if you wanted to do some kind of cool stop motion where he's like cartwheeling from mode to mode, I don't think it would be that difficult. I think that would be actually really cool. I'm not talented enough to do something like that, but I think you could have a lot of fun with something like this. So, like I said, I'm really excited to check out the next one because this has definitely exceeded my expectations. I kind of went in with not much expectations, and this really surprised me. I think this is a ton of fun, and I really, really like this quite a bit. Couple of minor things. Like I said, it's not 100% perfect. You know, it would be nice to have some, you know, wrist articulation in some of these modes, but again, I get it. In this mode, having these little hands shown, that's a bit of a bummer. I wish there was an Autobot symbol here. for this combined mode. But overall, they're minor little nitpicky things. For $30, I think it's a pretty decent set. I mean, if you think about them as two $15 figures, one of them not having an alt mode is kind of a bummer. But there's a lot going on with this. I mean, like the box says, 5 different modes. You have 2 different combined modes. You have Bumblebee's robot mode, Malto's robot mode, and then Bumblebee's car mode. There's a lot to do here, and I really, really like this a lot. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and as always, thanks so much for watching.